In this video, we'll set up your related resources so that they are coordinated and make sure that your lexica open when you click on a given word in your foreign language Bible. In order then to make sure your resources are tracking together, notice this feature. When we come up to the icon that represents what would be the hardcover graphic for a resource and click on it, about 3 entries down, we encounter what's called link set. What this refers to is building a set of resources by your description, by your election, which will then be interrelated and they will track with one another. I like to have all my Bibles of all versions linked together. Why don't we make the Bibles link set A? I clicked on the A, notice that an orange backfield A appears. Let's do that with the English Bible. Select your New Revised Standard. Click on the graphic for that resource, come down to link set, and once again click A. Notice that these now both have A. Watch what happens when we shift in our Hebrew Bible. Let's suppose we want to go to Genesis. Incidentally, there are 2 ways to access this panel. One is with your mouse, cover it, sweep across it, select it, and then type something like Genesis 1, and now enter. It's moved to Genesis 1, and notice that just moments later, the NRSV caught up with it. Here's another way to get into that field. Click on the resource anywhere in the resource that you wish to move, and now I'm going to use the Tab button instead of the mouse. I'm about to depress the Tab. Notice what happens when I do. It turned the Go-To field turned blue. Why don't we go to Psalm 23? TS23, it accepts abbreviations, and now enter. Hebrews moved to Psalm 23, and so has the English. This will happen whether or not the resource is exposed. Right now I'm going to cover up the English. Let's go to Jonah 1. Hebrew moves to Jonah 1. And now why don't we uncover NRSV and see whether it's moved to? It has. So this is an extremely useful resource. We could do this, in fact, let's do it with the Septuagint as well. There we go. Now if I'm wanting to check Jonah 1:1 in the Hebrew and find out what it says in the Septuagint, Septuagint is already there. If you ever wish to reverse that process, notice that you can click on that same icon. If you were to click the word none, then the link disappears. So I want to restore that to link A. Next, we'll learn how to derive Hebrew information from this powerful tool. Let's go, for example, to Jonah 1:1. As we go to the Lexham Hebrew Bible and hover over any Hebrew word, then notice the bottom of this panel displays some parsing information. You'll see that I'm hovered over the word Yonah, and then the word Yonah appears below. I understand that it's a noun. It's a proper noun, meaning a name. It's masculine, it's singular, and it's in the absolute form, not the construct form. What if we hover over a verb, such as the last word in verse 1? This particular word is comprised of 2 pieces. It's the lamed preposition, and then the shoresh amar. Notice that the parsing at the bottom indicates that it's a preposition, lamed, and it's the shoresh amar, which is correctly identified as a verb. It's in the call stem, which is the stem that we first learned. We further know that it's an infinitive, and it's an infinitive construct, not an infinitive absolute. You can continue this process right on down the line. So that's one way to get some bare bones information. Staying with this word lemor, supposing that we then wanted to open up a lexicon, I'm going to right-click on this word. When I right-click, then fuller parsing information is displayed. Initially, this will be a bit overwhelming, but here's what we want to do. This word lemor, as we discovered earlier, is comprised of a preposition plus an infinitive construct. Presumably, you'll recognize the preposition le as meaning to, so we don't need to look up that one, but perhaps we've forgotten what amar means. Notice we have then a second lemma. Lemma means root. It's like shoresh, but think of it as a lexical root, the barest form of a component. We have one lemma here, and now dragging the mouse down, we have a second lemma. This is fundamental that you grasp this. The word is up top here, but notice that there's not one lemma, but two lemmas that are produced. I'll need to select the lemma which I need. That is the shoresh or the root, the word component that I need. I don't need the preposition, I need the amar word right now. So I've selected that lemma. And now I can go over to the left and decide which resource I would like to look it up in. You can use the Enhanced Brown Driver Briggs as a standard one. That's a good one. I click on that, and now notice that Enhanced Brown Driver Briggs has turned to that particular entry. I can instruct the concise Halot to come to that same entry as well by establishing the links. I've done this already in mind, but you can do this at this time. Why don't you choose the set B as your lexicon collection? So we'll set that one to B. This one I've done already, but I'll walk you through it. Click on the B, and now those will track with each other. Let's take one more step that will instruct your lexica to operate just a little bit more rapidly. It has to do with what's known as prioritizing your resources. In order to do so, we'll come over to the library, the open book tab, click on this, and now let's enter in one of your lexica. For example, let's enter in BDB. Brown Driver Briggs. Now, before clicking on it, once again, before clicking on it, left click, we want instead to use a right click on this resource. When we right-click on it, notice that there are 5 options, the last of which is known as Prioritize this resource. Slide down and click on Prioritize this resource. When you do so, a new panel opens up to the right. Disregard, please, the Hebrew Bibles that are showing up with mine. What I'd like you to do is make sure that among your lexica, you have Brown Driver Briggs at the top. How to move them is simply by dragging them. Notice now that the BDB, when I release the mouse, is going to appear under the concise. There it is. I don't want that. I want BDB above the concise. Chances are you may not have Hebrew Bibles listed. You would not have HAL, the full-size Halot, listed. Simply arrange in your preferred resources your prioritization so that BDB appears. And also, if concise does not already appear, then repeat this same process. So we would go to this the window in the library. And once the concise Hebrew is offered, we will right-click on it and click Prioritize. And now it should indeed appear in your Prefer These Resources panel. You'll just want to be sure that it appears subordinate, that is under the BDB option. When you do so, and I'm going to now click back on the library to switch this page off. Let's see what happens now when we click on a word in the Lexham Hebrew Bible. I'm going to click on Kum. And now, without even needing to open with the right click this panel, this parsing panel, just by simply double clicking, it has swiftly opened up Enhanced Brown Driver Briggs, and with the linked Halot, concise Halot, that has opened also. Here's another element concerning the bottom left panel parsing. Go for a moment to Deuteronomy 31:29. I have that already here, but go ahead and type that in. When you type in the chapter and verse designations, you can either use a period to separate chapter from verses, or you can use a colon, whichever is easier for you. And now you should display Deuteronomy 31:29. I'm interested in a particular word to show you a parsing feature. It's the verb here, v'karat, v'karat. Depending on your font size, it may appear somewhere other than at the right margin of the third line down. But do locate this verb karat and just hover over it. As you hover over it and then study the bottom left panel, you'll notice that it parses it as vav, conjunction, the particle conjunction, then a semicolon and the next component of the v'karat word, namely Kofresh Aleph, the Shoresh, is given to you, and then the Arabic numeral 2. Draw your attention to the Arabic numeral 2. Now keep that numeral in mind, and now click on Kara in the text itself. You'll notice that Enhanced Brown Driver Briggs will open to Kara. But do you notice this Roman numeral 2? This is telling us that there is not one entry which indicates a fundamental meaning, a fundamental shoresh, Kara, but there are two. To make this clear, why don't we just enlarge this particular panel. Control F11 floats this panel, and you notice now we are given Kara Roman numeral 1. Let's page down. You can either use the space bar. The space bar for typing will advance a page at a time. I'm just clicking it several times. And now notice out at the far left there appears yet another Kara Shoresh, and it is listed as Roman numeral 2. Perhaps you've noticed there's an indented Kore number 2. This is not the one we want. We don't want the indented one, which is in line with this Kore, Roman numeral 1, but rather all the way out to the far margin in the larger type as a Shoresh Kara. Once again, the parsing information that was at the lower part of this panel, down in this field, was indicating that we should direct our attention to the second entry. And fortunately, the linking took us directly there. Notice then that as I hover over this Vakara, once again, you see in the lower left, Kara with the numeral 2. It's telling me that in the opinion of those who did this reading, who made these morphological assignments, they would recommend that we employ Shoresh 2. Please notice that is an interpretive choice. Once again, lexical linking that's performed was done by someone in the modern era who sat down and said, well, typically people understood this particular word as Kara meaning 2, not Kara meaning number 1. You may find you want, in fact, I would encourage you to be aware of what the other meaning is, just so you know what the Hebrew reader and the hearer at the time of composition would have been thinking. It's just as if you hear the word knows. Is this a verb, or is this a piece of anatomy? Knows. He knows Hebrew, or he smells with his nose. When you hear it audibly, it could go either direction. It's not until you have the context that you know which meaning to choose. You do that automatically in English, but it's worth taking advantage of your knowledge of Hebrew so that you know which alternative meanings would be recognized or would be entertained by the hearer. Now that you've set up your layout, here's how you can make sure that each time you turn on your Logos software, it will automatically display, first of all, that layout. Come here to the Tools tab towards the top center, and you'll find under Settings the option Program Settings. If you click on this, this will open a tab that shows Program Settings. It's entirely possible that in your factory ready mode, you already have a Program Settings tab. If you've just executed what I've shown you, now you'll have two Program Settings tabs. You can get rid of one by just clicking on the X to the right of it. Let me now restore that Program Settings. And what you want to do is use this @startupopen2 command in order to instruct it which layout to use. By default, it uses most recent layout. If instead you wish to have your Hebrew Bible layout as the default, then simply give it this instruction, and now Hebrew Bible will pop up whenever you turn on the Logos software.